morning. Today is Friday, September 11th. For lunch today, we have sweet and sour meatballs with rice and a breadstick, or turkey BLT salad, or pepperoni pizza or cheese pizza. And today is picture day. If you hadn't had a chance to have your picture taken yet, someone will be dropping by your room sometime this morning to help make that happen. And happy birthday to Prairie Milestone in the 7th grade. Have a great day. Hey everybody. So yesterday we had something happen that we knew was coming sometime this school year, but it came a little quicker than we'd hoped. So we had our first confirmed case of a student who had COVID and was in our school building. So the way this works is I had to meet together with Mrs. Niprath, who's our school district nurse, and Mr. Whitmore, who's our school district administrator. And together we talked with the Wood County Department of Health, and they asked us a lot of different questions. They wanted to know what type of things we had in place to protect students and distance them out. They were especially interested in what we're doing to keep the cohorts or each homeroom separate from each other during recess and lunch and throughout the day. And so as we were going through the process, it was determined that the people who were in that person's homeroom were needed to quarantine. In other words, that they had to stay home from school for a certain amount of time in order to go ahead and protect against any potential passing of disease. Now, fortunately, because the people in grade 4 had been following the rules that we have very clearly and working with that, we only had to send home one homeroom, and who's out of the building for the time being, and the other homerooms in grade 4 were able to stay. So right now, even though it's frustrating for everyone that we have to stay separate out into our homerooms, that's what's keeping it safe. That's what's able to help us stay in school. The fact is, it's not fair that we have to do this, but the disease doesn't care about fair, and so we've got to be able to be prepared. So the thing is about this keeping people separate is that for some students, it's been sort of a cat and mouse game. It's saying, well, I don't really want to stay with my homeroom, so I'm going to go ahead and move to another one and we'll see if anybody notices. Or, hey, as long as they'll catch me, then I'll go ahead and move back over. Or in some cases that say, even if they do catch me, it's not fair, I'm not going to move. Well, here's the thing. If we had had a student in one of those grades who had caught COVID, I would have to talk with the Department of Health Services at Wood County, and in all likelihood, we would have had the whole grade that would need to stay home instead of just part of it. So one change we're making starting today is that we're not going to have people rotate from one place to another from day to day for the next little while. The reason for this is that the supervisors right now don't know you well enough. They don't know which students are in which group and where you need to be. And so take a good look at this list because you're going to be there for the next little while. We've been rotating because we didn't want anyone to get too bored with one place or the other. But for right now, we need to focus on safety more than boredom. And once we figure out and feel comfortable about who's where, then we'll go ahead and talk about rotations. So we'll start rotating the playground groups once the playground supervisors tell us, okay, we feel comfortable, we know where people are, and we're ready to go. In the gyms, just so you know, we're not going to rotate more than once a week. We needed to keep that just a little bit more stable, and with that, we feel we're going to be safe. So I apologize for how long that last segment took, because today is September 11th. It's the day that we remember the sacrifice that several of our public servants, especially policemen and firefighters, have made for us to keep us safe. And so today I'd like to show you a short video about two brothers, a policeman and a firefighter, who were involved in September 11th and what that meant to their family.
There was a couple of days each year you were allowed to take your children to work, and Joe loved it. That was his birthday present, that he would spend the night in the firehouse. We'd have a cake, and the guys I work with, they would take a milk container, and they'd cut out the facsimile of a building, and they'd put it on the top of the cake, and then they would light it up. And they would tell Joe to put it out, and he would throw a pot of water on it. The birthday cake was a little soggy, but this is what he wanted. Joe started dating a young lady whose father was a police officer, and he come home one day and he says, I'm taking a police test. I says, Joe, you're only 17 years old. He says, no big deal. On the other side of the room, my son, John, wanted to be the next Donald Trump. He was going to make $1 million and take care of his mother and father. But in 1984, I came down with throat cancer. He noticed then how my unit took care of us. And he says, I'm going to become a fireman. I says, you're kidding me. Firemen don't make millions of dollars. How am I going to live like a king? But I was very happy, very proud. My father had been on the fire department, and he was the first one to be issued badge number 3436. And they reissued it to my son, John. So the badge was only used by 2. Both the boys would call me when they were working. John would always call around 3:30, 4 o'clock. And that particular night, September 10th, we spoke for a few minutes. And I says, I love you. And he says, I love you. Joe called me in the morning and told me to turn on the television that a plane just hit the Trade Center. He says, I'm heading south on West Street. This is a big one. And I just said, be careful. I love you. He said, I love you too. That was it. We had the boys for John for 36 years, Joe for 34 years. Ironically, badge number 3436. I don't have any could've, should've, or would'ves. I wouldn't have changed anything. There's not many people that the last words they said to their son or daughter was, I love you. And the last words they heard was, I love you. So that makes me sleep at night.
So today on September 11th, let's do our part to remember those who are keeping us safe. And then, especially in this time of COVID, let's do what we can to make our own sacrifices to keep each other safe so that we can help each other out. All right, you take care.